Wait, what do you mean the account is empty? The words barely made it out of my throat as I stared at the bank statement. In my hands, the paper shaking so badly, the numbers blurred together. I was standing in our kitchen, the same kitchen where my grandmother used to make me chocolate chip pancakes every Sunday morning, and now it felt like the walls were closing in on me. My mother was sitting at the table, pretending to be very interested in her coffee mug. And my father had that expression on his face like I was some annoying problem he had to deal with before he could go watch television. The fluorescent light above us buzzed and flickered, casting strange shadows across their faces, and I noticed for the first time how old they looked, how tired, how completely unbothered by what they had just told me. My name is Elena Mercer. I'm 19 years old, and I had just discovered that my entire future had been stolen from me by the two people who were supposed to protect it. I've always been the kind of person who needs everything planned out perfectly, every detail organized in color-coded folders and spreadsheets. Every possible outcome accounted for because chaos terrifies me more than anything else in this world. My biggest flaw is that I let people walk all over me when I should stand up for myself. I swallow my anger and my hurt until it builds up like pressure in a bottle. And I've always needed my parents' approval so desperately that I made myself small and quiet and convenient for them. But there I was, holding proof that all my careful planning, all my hard work at 2 part-time jobs, all my straight A's and perfect attendance, meant absolutely nothing to them. "We had to help your brother," my father said, and he sighed like this conversation was inconvenient for him, like I was being dramatic about something trivial. His wedding needed support. I blinked at him, my mind racing to process what he was actually saying to me. "That was my college fund," I said, and my voice sounded strange and distant like it was coming from someone else entirely. "That was Grandma's money for my education." My mother finally looked up from her coffee, her eyes defensive and cold. "Family sacrifices for family, Elena. Your grandmother would have understood that. Ryan needed this." The casual way she said it, like it was obvious, like I should have expected this, made something crack inside my chest. That money represented 4 years of college, my dream of studying engineering, my escape from this suffocating house where I had always been second best. Where Ryan's needs and wants always came before mine, because he was older and charming, and their golden child who could do no wrong. $68,000, every single penny that my grandmother had saved and left specifically for me, gone like it never existed. That's when Ryan walked in, still laughing from a phone call about floral arrangements and venue upgrades, his face flushed with excitement about his upcoming destination, wedding in the Bahamas. He was 27, successful, handsome in that effortless way that made everyone love him instantly. And he had never once in his entire life had to fight for anything, because everything just fell into his lap. "Hey sis," he said, grabbing an apple from the fruit bowl. "You look intense, what's wrong?" I turned to face him, the bank statement still clutched in my hand. "They took my college fund," I said. "All of it for your wedding." He bit into the apple, chewed thoughtfully, and shrugged like I had just told him it might rain tomorrow. "You'll figure something out," he said. "You always do. Besides, this wedding is really important to Melissa's family. Her dad knows people who could help my career. It's an investment in our future." Our future. Not mine. His, always his. "That money was legally left to me," I said, my voice shaking now. "Grandma wanted me to go to college. She put it in writing." My father stood up, his chair scraping against the linoleum floor. "The money was in an account we managed. We made an executive decision. You're young, you can take out loans, work your way through school like plenty of people do. Your brother needed this now." The finality in his voice told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a discussion. This was them informing me of a decision they had already made, already executed, already spent. Ryan checked his watch. "Look, I gotta run. Meeting the caterer in 20 minutes. They're doing this amazing thing with lobster and—" "I don't care about your lobster," I interrupted, and my voice came out sharper than I intended. He looked at me, actually looked at me, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not guilt, annoyance. Don't be bitter, Elena. This is my wedding, the biggest day of my life. Can you just be happy for me? That's when I found out the worst part. The entire 68,000 is already spent, I asked. My mother nodded. The venue required a full deposit. It's non-refundable. The invitations went out last week. There are 200 confirmed guests. Everything is paid for and locked in. Ryan grinned. It's going to be incredible. You're still coming, right? Melissa wants you to be a bridesmaid. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw absolutely no comprehension of what he had taken from me. No awareness that my dreams mattered as much as his wedding photos. No understanding that I had worked myself to exhaustion for years trying to earn their love and approval, and he just existed and got everything handed to him. Okay, I said quietly, carefully folding the bank statement and placing it on the counter. Okay, my mother looked relieved. I'm glad you understand, sweetheart. Family takes care of each other, but I didn't understand, I didn't forgive, and I definitely wasn't going to forget. That night, lying in my bed staring at the ceiling, something fundamental shifted inside me. The girl who needed approval, who swallowed her anger, who made herself small and convenient, she didn't exist anymore. In her place was someone new, someone colder and sharper, and completely done with being invisible. I opened my laptop and started a new spreadsheet. This one wasn't for college applications or work schedules. This one was labeled simply Ryan's wedding, and I began to fill it with every detail I could remember about the venue, the vendors, the deposits, the contracts. My hands moved across the keyboard with a precision I had never felt before, my mind already several steps ahead, already seeing the patterns and possibilities and vulnerabilities. Because here's what my parents didn't know, what Ryan definitely didn't know, what nobody seemed to remember or care about. My grandmother hadn't just left me money. She had been a lawyer, sharp and meticulous, and she had written her will with very specific language. The funds were designated explicitly for educational purposes only. My parents had been named as custodians, not owners, with strict instructions that the money could only be used for tuition, books, housing related to my college education. What they did, taking that money and spending it on a wedding, that wasn't just unfair or selfish or cruel. It was potentially illegal. It was misuse of a minor's inheritance, breach of fiduciary duty, violation of the terms of the trust. I knew this because I had read the will myself when Grandma died, had kept a copy in my desk drawer, had studied every word trying to understand what she wanted for me. And now, sitting in my room with my laptop glowing in the darkness, I pulled out that copy and read it again with new eyes. Not the eyes of a grieving granddaughter, but the eyes of someone planning revenge. The document was airtight. The language was crystal clear. My grandmother had protected me from beyond the grave, and I had been too afraid of confrontation, too desperate for my family's love, to use that protection. But not anymore. I spent the next 3 hours researching estate law, trust violations, legal recourse for beneficiaries. I took notes in an encrypted document, backed up to 3 different cloud services. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was focused, I was methodical, I was dangerous. The next morning I came downstairs with a smile on my face. I've been thinking, I told my parents over breakfast. You're right, family should support family. I want to help with the wedding planning. My mother's face lit up with relief and happiness. Oh honey, that's so mature of you. I knew you'd come around. Ryan mentioned he needs help coordinating everything, I continued. With the guest list, vendor confirmations, making sure all the payments are on track. I've got organizational skills and I'm not working as many hours this month. I could take some of that stress off his plate. My father nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. See, this is what I was talking about. You're a problem solver. I smiled wider, letting them see what they wanted to see. The obedient daughter, the helpful sister, the girl who knew her place. Inside, I was calculating and planning and waiting. Ryan was thrilled when I offered to help. Melissa is so overwhelmed, he said, handing me a 3-ring binder full of contracts and receipts and vendor information. If you could just handle the confirmations and make sure everyone knows the timeline, that would be amazing. You're really good at this stuff. I took the binder like it was a gift. Of course. What are sisters for? Over the next 2 weeks, I became indispensable to the wedding planning. I called vendors to confirm dates and times. I managed the guest list and seating chart. I coordinated transportation from the airport to the resort. I created detailed spreadsheets tracking every expense, every payment, every contract term. And with each phone call, each email, each invoice I reviewed, I documented everything. I saved every receipt that showed the source of funds. I recorded every conversation where vendors confirmed they had been paid from my parents' account, the same account that had held my grandmother's trust. I collected signatures and dates and transaction numbers. My organizational obsession, the trait that had always made me seem like a boring perfectionist, became my greatest weapon. But the deeper I went into the planning, the more I started to lose myself in it. I stopped sleeping more than 4 hours a night. I stopped eating regular meals, surviving on coffee and granola bars. My grades started slipping because I spent all my time researching legal precedents and trust law instead of studying for exams. My friends noticed something was wrong. "You look terrible," my best friend Sarah told me one afternoon when we met for coffee. "Are you okay? You've canceled on me 3 times this month." "I'm fine," I said automatically, but I could feel my hands shaking as I held my cup. "Just busy with family stuff. This is about the college fund thing, isn't it?" she asked quietly. I had told her what happened in a moment of weakness, needing someone to validate that I wasn't crazy for being angry. "You need to let this go, Elena. Take out loans, apply for scholarships. Don't let this consume you." But she didn't understand. Nobody understood. This wasn't about money anymore, not really. This was about every time I had been overlooked, every time my achievements had been ignored, while Ryan got celebrated for doing the bare minimum. Every time I had made myself smaller to make them more comfortable. This was about being invisible in my own family. "I'm handling it," I told Sarah, and I saw the concern in her eyes, the way she looked at me like I was becoming someone she didn't recognize. Maybe I was. Maybe that was necessary. 3 weeks before the wedding, I had everything I needed. Documented proof of the fund transfers. Copies of my grandmother's will with the specific educational use clause. Statements from vendors confirming the source of their payments. Email chains where my parents discussed using Elena's account for wedding expenses. I had built an ironclad case, and my obsession with perfection meant there were no gaps, no weak points, nothing they could explain away or dismiss. That's when I made the call to a lawyer who specialized in estate disputes. His name was Thomas Vale, and he had a reputation for being ruthless and thorough. "This is a clear violation of trust terms," he said after reviewing my documentation. "Your parents could face serious legal consequences. Are you sure you want to proceed? This will likely destroy your relationship with your family." I thought about Ryan laughing while telling me I'd figure it out. I thought about my mother's dismissive tone saying grandma would have understood. I thought about my father sighing like my future was an inconvenience. "I'm sure," I said. "What happens next?" He explained the process. "We would file a formal complaint with the probate court. A financial investigator would be assigned to review the trust account transactions. My parents would be notified and required to provide documentation. If the violation was confirmed, they would be ordered to restore the full amount plus penalties and legal fees." "The timing is important," Thomas said. "When do you want to file?" I looked at my calendar at the date circled in red marker. "1 week before the wedding," I said. "I want maximum impact." He was quiet for a moment. "That's strategic but aggressive. It will cause significant disruption." "Good," I said, and I heard how cold my voice sounded, how different from the girl I used to be. "That's exactly what I want." The week before the wedding felt like the longest of my life. I kept up my helpful sister act, confirming final details with vendors. reassuring Ryan that everything was perfect, smiling at my parents when they praised me for being so mature about everything. Inside, I was counting down the hours until the complaint was filed, until the investigator contacted them, until their perfect wedding fantasy came crashing down around them. My flaw, my need for approval, kept whispering that I should stop, that I should forgive them, that destroying their relationship with me wasn't worth it. But I had gone too far now. I had built this revenge too carefully to back out, and part of me genuinely believed they deserved this. They had stolen from me. They had dismissed my dreams. They needed to face consequences. On Monday morning, 5 days before the wedding, Thomas filed the complaint. By Tuesday afternoon, my parents received notification that their accounts were being investigated for misuse of trust funds. I was at work when my mother called me, her voice shrill with panic. "Elena, something terrible has happened. There's some kind of investigation about Grandma's money. They're saying we misused it. This must be a mistake." "Did you know anything about this?" I kept my voice calm and confused. "An investigation? What do you mean?" "They're asking about the wedding expenses," she said, and I could hear her crying now. "They're saying we violated the trust terms. This is insane. We didn't do anything wrong." Didn't do anything wrong. Even now, even facing legal consequences, she couldn't admit what they had done to me. "I don't understand," I said, lying perfectly. "What happens now? They want documentation of everything." "They're sending someone to ask questions. Elena, this could ruin Ryan's wedding. Can you talk to them? Explain that you were fine with us using the money." The audacity of asking me to lie for them, to help them cover up what they had done, almost made me laugh. "I'll see what I can do," I said, and ended the call. Wednesday morning, 3 days before the wedding, the financial investigator showed up at the house. I had volunteered to be there, playing the concerned daughter trying to help her confused parents. The investigator's name was Patricia Chen, and she was exactly as thorough as I needed her to be. "Let's start with the basics," she said, sitting at our kitchen table with files spread out in front of her. The trust established by Margaret Hale specified that funds were to be used exclusively for Elena Mercer's educational expenses. "Can you explain why approximately $68,000 was withdrawn and used for other purposes?" My father tried his rehearsed explanation. "We interpreted family support as being within the scope of the trust. Elena's education benefits from her brother's success and connections." Patricia looked at him over her reading glasses. "The trust language is quite specific. Tuition, books, housing related to attendance at an accredited educational institution." "Where in that language do you see authorization for wedding expenses?" My mother jumped in. "Elena agreed to this. She understood that family helps family." "Tell her, sweetheart." She looked at me expectantly, desperately, and I saw real fear in her eyes for the first time. This was the moment. This was where I could back down, could save them, could return to being the invisible daughter who accepted whatever they decided. "I never agreed," I said quietly, and watched their faces change. "You took the money without asking me. You spent it without my permission. I found out after everything was already done." "Elena," my mother gasped. "What are you doing?" "Telling the truth," I said, and it felt like breathing after being underwater too long. Patricia made notes. "I'll need to see all documentation regarding the withdrawal and use of these funds. Bank statements, contracts with vendors, proof of payment, everything." My father's face had gone red with anger. "You did this," he said to me. "You filed this complaint. You're trying to sabotage your brother's wedding." "I'm trying to get back what was legally mine," I said, standing up. "What Grandma left for me, what you stole." The fight that erupted after Patricia left was the worst we'd ever had. My mother screamed that I was destroying the family over money. My father called me selfish and vindictive and ungrateful for everything they had sacrificed raising me. But the worst was Ryan, who showed up at the house after they called him in a panic. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted at me. "This is my wedding. The biggest day of my life, and you're trying to ruin it because you're jealous." "Jealous?" I laughed, and it sounded bitter even to my own ears. You think this is about jealousy. What else could it be? You've always resented me for being successful, for being happy. Now you can't stand that I'm getting married, and you're alone and bitter. His words hit harder than I expected, finding old wounds I thought I had buried. This is about them stealing from me, I said. This is about you acting like my future doesn't matter as long as you get your perfect wedding. They didn't steal anything. They used family money for family purposes. It wasn't family money, Ryan. It was MY money. Legally, specifically, explicitly mine. He stepped closer, his face twisted with anger I had never seen directed at me before. You know what your problem is. You can't stand anyone else being happy. You're so obsessed with control and planning, and being perfect that you can't handle when life doesn't go exactly your way. Grow up, Elena. The world doesn't revolve around you. Get out, I said, my voice shaking. Get out of my room. This isn't over, he said. If you go through with this, if you ruin my wedding, I will never forgive you. You'll be dead to me. Then I guess I'm already dead, I said, and slammed the door in his face. That night I cried for the first time since finding out about the money. Not because I regretted what I was doing, but because Ryan was right about one thing. I was alone. Sarah had stopped calling after I canceled on her again. My parents wouldn't speak to me except through lawyers. My brother hated me. I had burned every bridge in pursuit of revenge, and there was no going back now. My obsessive need for control, my inability to let this go, had isolated me completely. But I had also gone too far to stop. The complaint was filed. The investigation was ongoing. In 2 days, the wedding would happen, and everything I had planned would come to fruition. I just had to hold on a little longer. Friday morning, the day before the wedding, most of the family flew out to the Bahamas. My parents barely looked at me at the airport. Ryan and Melissa sat as far away from me as possible in the waiting area. But I had my boarding pass, and I had my role to play. The helpful sister who coordinated everything, who made sure all the details were perfect, who nobody suspected was the architect of their impending disaster. The resort was stunning, white sand beaches and turquoise water and palm trees swaying in the warm breeze. Under different circumstances, I might have enjoyed it. Instead, I checked into my room, reviewed my documentation one more time, and waited. Patricia had warned me that she would need to speak with vendors directly, that she would likely need to visit the venue to verify contracts and payments. I had provided her with all the contact information, all the schedules, all the access she would need. Everything was in place. Saturday morning dawned perfect and clear. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 in the afternoon on a platform overlooking the ocean, with the reception to follow in the resort's grand ballroom. Guests were already gathering by the pool, drinking mimosas and laughing about the beautiful location. Ryan was getting ready in the groom's suite with his best man and groomsmen. Melissa was in the bridal suite with her bridesmaids, and I had been deliberately excluded from that group after our fight. I didn't care. I was exactly where I needed to be. At 11 o'clock, 2 people arrived at the resort. Patricia Chen and a man I didn't recognize but assumed was another investigator or legal representative. They went directly to the wedding coordinator's office. I watched from a distance as the coordinator's expression changed from professional cheerfulness to confusion to concern. 10 minutes later, she emerged and pulled my parents aside. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I saw my mother's face go pale. I saw my father start to argue, gesturing angrily. I saw the coordinator shaking her head, making apologetic gestures, clearly explaining something they didn't want to hear. Then Patricia approached them, professional and calm, and the real conversation began. I need to verify the source of funds used for the venue deposit and associated vendors, she said, her voice carrying in the quiet lobby. Due to the ongoing investigation into potential misuse of trust funds, several contractors have been advised to suspend services pending resolution. My father's voice was loud enough that other guests started to notice. This is absurd. Everything is paid for. The wedding is in 5 hours. The payments are being disputed, Patricia explained. Until we can confirm that the funds were used legally and appropriately, vendors are within their rights to refuse service. The wedding coordinator looked devastated. "I'm so sorry," she said to my parents. "But without confirmation that the payments are legitimate, I can't authorize the venue access, the catering service, or the other contracted elements." "It's a liability issue." "What are you saying?" my mother asked, her voice rising into hysteria. "Are you saying the wedding is canceled?" "I'm saying we need to pause everything until this legal matter is resolved. I've already contacted the caterer and the band, and they're holding on service until they receive payment verification." That's when Ryan appeared, still in his casual clothes, his hair wet from a shower. "What's going on? Someone said there's a problem with the venue." My father turned to him, and I saw something break in his expression. "There's an investigation into the money we used for your wedding. They're saying we can't use the venue until it's resolved." Ryan's face went from confused to furious in seconds. "Investigation? What investigation?" His eyes found me standing near the lobby entrance, watching everything unfold. "You," he said, and his voice was pure venom. "You did this. You actually did this." I stepped forward, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "I did what I had to do," I said. "You took my future. Now you get to see what that feels like." He crossed the space between us in 3 long strides, getting right in my face. "You vindictive bitch. You're actually going to ruin my wedding over money. Over $68,000 that was legally mine," I shouted back, and suddenly all the anger I had been holding came pouring out. "Over every time you got everything you wanted while I got ignored. Over being invisible in my own family." "You were never invisible," he yelled. "You were always there, always perfect, always making the rest of us feel like we weren't good enough. And now what? You're going to destroy my wedding because you can't handle not being the center of attention." "This isn't about attention," my voice cracked. "This is about you stealing from me and acting like it doesn't matter. This is about Mom and Dad choosing you over me every single time. This is about nobody caring about my dreams as long as yours come true." My mother tried to step between us. "Elena, please, we can fix this after the wedding. Don't do this now. Don't ruin this day." "You already ruined it," I said, looking at her directly. "When you took my money, when you dismissed my future. When you made me beg for what was legally mine while you handed everything to him without question. You did this, not me." The resort manager appeared, looking uncomfortable. "I'm very sorry, but without resolution of the payment dispute, we cannot proceed with the event. We're happy to reschedule once the legal matters are settled, but for today, we need to suspend all services." "This is insane," Ryan turned to the manager. "Everything is already set up. The guests are here, you can't just cancel a wedding." "We can and we are," the manager said firmly. "I understand this is difficult, but we have a legal obligation to verify the legitimacy of payments before providing services." Within an hour, the news had spread to all the guests. The catering manager arrived to confirm that food service was suspended. The band packed up their equipment. The officiant apologized, but said he couldn't perform a ceremony at a venue that was under legal dispute. I watched from the balcony of my room as Ryan's perfect wedding collapsed. Melissa's parents were furious, gathering their family members and demanding to know what kind of scam they had gotten involved with. Other guests were checking out early, unwilling to stay for a wedding that wasn't happening. My parents sat in the lobby, looking 10 years older, my mother crying into her hands, while my father made increasingly desperate phone calls to lawyers who couldn't do anything on a Saturday afternoon in the Bahamas. Ryan found me on my balcony as the sun was setting, the time when his ceremony should have been starting. "I hope you're happy," he said, his voice hollow and defeated. "I got what I deserved," I said, and I was surprised to find I meant it. "You got your consequences." "Consequences," he repeated bitterly. "You destroyed my wedding, humiliated me in front of everyone I care about, and you call it consequences. You destroyed my future and called it family," I shot back. "At least I'm honest about what I did." He was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the ocean where he should have been getting married. "I didn't realize how much you hated us," he said finally. "I don't hate you," I said, and it was true. "I hate being invisible. I hate being an afterthought. I hate that my dreams mattered less than your wedding photos. So you made sure I'd remember you," he said. "Congratulations, I'll never forget this. And I'll never forgive you either." He walked away, and I stood alone on the balcony watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not regret. Just emptiness where my family used to be. The next few days were a blur of legal proceedings and hostile silences. Patricia confirmed that my parents had indeed violated the terms of the trust, that the money had been used illegally, and that they would be required to restore the full amount plus penalties. My parents settled the case within 2 weeks by selling their vacation cabin in Vermont, a place they had owned for 20 years. A place full of family memories that now had to be sacrificed to pay back what they stole from me. The $68,000 was returned to an educational trust account in my name only, plus an additional $15,000 in penalties and legal fees. Ryan and Melissa postponed their wedding indefinitely, their relationship strained by the scandal and the financial mess. The last time I saw my brother was at a mandatory mediation session where we signed papers and didn't speak a single word to each other. My mother sent me one email after everything was settled. It said, "I hope your college education was worth losing your family over. You've gotten what you wanted. I hope it makes you happy." I stared at that email for a long time, thinking about how to respond. Thinking about explaining that they were the ones who chose Ryan's wedding over my education, that they were the ones who made this choice first. But in the end, I just deleted it. There was nothing left to say. I started college that fall at a good engineering program 3 states away from my family. Every tuition bill was paid in full. Every textbook was purchased without stress. Every time I walked across campus toward my classes, I thought about my grandmother and the protection she had built into her will. The foresight she had to make sure I would be taken care of even after she was gone. 2 months into my first semester, I received an email from Patricia Chen. The subject line read, "Additional Trust Discovery." My hands shook as I opened it. "During our investigation of your grandmother's estate," the email read, "we discovered a secondary educational trust that was not included in the original will filing. Your grandmother established this trust 3 months before her death, and it was managed by a separate law firm. The trust was designed to activate upon your 18th birthday and contains an additional $120,000 designated specifically for your graduate education and professional development. Your parents were not named as custodians of this trust, and they appear to have been unaware of its existence. The funds are now available for your use as outlined in the trust documents. Please contact me to discuss access and management of these funds." I read the email 3 times, then closed my laptop and sat in my dorm room staring at the wall. My grandmother had known. Somehow, she had known that my parents might not protect the first trust, so she had created a backup plan, a secret safety net that would catch me even if everything else fell apart. She had protected me from beyond the grave in ways I never imagined. $120,000 meant I could finish my bachelor's degree debt-free. It meant I could go to graduate school. It meant I could build the future I had dreamed about without compromise or limitation. It meant my grandmother's love had outlasted my parents' betrayal. That night, I walked across campus under the stars, past the engineering building where I spent most of my time, past the library where I studied until closing, past the coffee shop where I had started to make new friends who didn't know anything about my family drama. I thought about Ryan, probably still angry, probably still hating me. I thought about my parents, probably still convinced they had done nothing wrong. I thought about the version of myself who used to need their approval so desperately that she made herself invisible. That girl was gone now. Maybe she had died on a beach in the Bahamas watching a wedding collapse. Maybe she had died in a kitchen, holding a bank statement with trembling hands. Maybe she had never really existed at all, just a performance I did to survive a family that didn't value me. The new version of me, the one who fought back, who planned revenge, who burned bridges and accepted consequences, she was still learning how to exist in the world. She was still learning that standing up for yourself meant sometimes standing alone. She was still learning that revenge could be necessary and justified and still leave you feeling empty afterward. But she was also learning that she could survive without their approval, that her future belonged to her now. That sometimes the only way to save yourself is to let go of the people who are drowning you. I pulled out my phone and typed a response to Patricia's email. Thank you for this information. I would like to set up a meeting to discuss the trust management and ensure the funds are properly allocated for my educational goals. I appreciate your thoroughness in handling this investigation. Professional, polite, moving forward. Then I opened a new document and started making a plan for graduate school, for internships, for the career I wanted to build. Because that's what I did. I planned, I organized. I controlled what I could control. But now I was planning for myself, not for their approval. Now my spreadsheets and schedules belonged to my dreams, not their expectations. The revenge was over. The family was gone. The future was mine. As I walked back to my dorm that night, I passed a couple of students laughing about something, their friendship easy and genuine. I felt a pang of loneliness, a reminder that my obsession with revenge had cost me more than just my family relationships. Sarah had tried to reach out a few times, but I had been so consumed with my plans, so isolated in my anger, that I had pushed her away too. My inability to let things go, my need for perfect control, my tendency to burn everything down when I felt hurt, these flaws hadn't disappeared just because I had won my case. They were still there, still shaping how I moved through the world, and I would have to learn to manage them if I wanted to build anything meaningful in this new life I had claimed for myself. But that was okay. That was part of being human. My grandmother had left me more than money. She had left me the tools to build independence, to create a future on my own terms, to survive even when the people who should have protected me chose someone else instead. And maybe, in the quiet moments between classes and study sessions, and building this new life, I would learn to be someone who didn't need revenge to feel valuable, who didn't need to destroy others to protect herself, who could exist in the world with all her flaws and still build something worth having. The story didn't end with a dramatic confrontation or a moment of perfect satisfaction. It ended with me, alone in a dorm room 3 states away from everyone I used to know, staring at an email that proved my grandmother loved me more than my parents ever did. Planning a future that finally belonged to me. And somehow, despite everything, despite the loneliness and the emptiness and the complicated mess of being the person who chose revenge over reconciliation, that was enough. It had to be enough. Because it was all I had left, and I was finally learning that sometimes, just sometimes, that's exactly what you need to survive.